Appreciate it. Members, that'll take us to item B1, which are council's priorities for the fiscal year 2026-2027 budget development process. It's all yours.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Kerri Lang, Director of Budget and Organizational Excellence. We're here to talk through and have a conversation about council priorities as we move forward in the budget process for fiscal year 27. We're first going to talk through the engagement that has been done so far for this budget process, talk through some of the survey results that we've received, do a forecast recap, and then talk about the exercise of prioritization tool that we will be distributing to council today. We always talk through the timeline. We're at May 19th where we're having this priority setting conversation. We will be presenting the fiscal year 27 proposed budget on July 16th and then go through a number of community input sessions, council work sessions to get to August 12th through 14th for budget adoption. So when we think through our budget engagement so far, we began the budget engagement with requests to boards and commissions to provide budget recommendations and asking for areas to consider for reduction from our boards and commissions. Those responses were received on March 31st and are currently being analyzed by departments. The city manager also held for the second year his community budget conversations. Over these 6 meetings, the manager heard from the community on various topics. He also conducted 2 feedback sessions from vendors who provide social services on behalf of the city, and has had the first of 3 employee budget conversations. The community survey, we received the community survey results, which were distributed to the council last week, and we will provide an overview later in this presentation. And each year we complete an online budget survey where we will share the preliminary results here and have the full report available during the budget season. And then finally, there will be opportunities for community input, as I mentioned, through the budget work sessions and the council district town halls that usually occur over the July and August timeframe. Looking at our community survey results, we received more than 2,000 completed responses with roughly 200 responses collected for each city council district. This balanced distribution gives us strong representation across the entire city and contributes to a statistically reliable margin of error of plus or minus 2.15% at the 95% confidence level. Participants evaluated 115 items spanning 10 major service categories. These categories cover everything from day-to-day city services, infrastructure, and public safety to broader perceptions about quality of life and the overall direction of Austin. Together, this gives us one of the most comprehensive and reliable snapshots of the community sentiments that we collect each year. This slide, although a little busy, provides a lot of information and lets us see who we heard from, confirming diverse and district balanced participation across the city. Because this year's survey included a mail-in option, it's important to keep in mind that mail surveys often produce slightly different respondent profiles. In our data, these differences show up most clearly amongst older Austinites, higher income households, and homeowners. These patterns do not affect the overall confidence interval, but they are useful context when interpreting results, especially when comparing demographic subgroups or looking for differences in perception across the community. The survey includes 2 types of questions. Questions that ask Austinites how satisfied they are with specific services, and questions that ask how much they agree with statements about perceptions of Austin. For both types, ETC combines the 2 top response levels, very satisfied and satisfied, or strongly agree and agree. They combined percentages become the score you'll see reported. It's also important to note that don't know responses are removed from the calculation. This keeps the results comparable across different service areas, especially ones people interact with more or less frequently. Overall, the city made significant strides. 105 out of 115 items improved from the 2023 survey. Electric service reliability and overall quality of life saw the strongest gains. Public safety also showed encouraging movement. Both APD emergency response timeliness and community confidence increased by more than 13 points. The takeaway, we're seeing broad citywide improvements, especially in our essential services. This overall satisfaction slide highlights Austin's perception across two major areas: overall quality of life and major city services. Across the board, we're seeing strong trends upward in how Austinites view the city as a place to live, work, raise children, and feel welcome. The biggest gains are in overall quality of life, which increased by more than 14 points. You'll also notice the stars next to a few service items. These stars come from the important satisfaction analysis, which identifies areas that Austinites consider highly important, but where satisfaction is comparatively lower. In this slide, traffic flow on major streets and the city's efforts to reduce homelessness rise to the top as key priorities based on community input. Looking at the overall perceptions, Austinites report strong trust in fire and EMS, and we are also seeing meaningful year-over-year gains in personal safety perceptions. More Austinites now report feeling safe in their neighborhoods during the day, and there's a notable increase in feeling safe in their homes. At the same time, perception of the city's planning for growth and the availability of affordable housing remains lower than other measures. This slide here shows the benchmarks that we have against other Texas cities and the United States. The full report shows these benchmarks in addition to benchmarks of our similar cities. It's important to note here that Austin is benchmarked a little bit higher than both Texas cities and nationwide. And then this slide is just to kind of show the dashboard that is available to show year-over-year results. It allows you to look at demographics across several areas by district, as well as over the course of, if you want to filter things in like age, race, ethnicity, you can do that through the dashboard, which is now live for the community and for you all to take a look at. Moving on to a quick overview of the budget survey. We provide an annual budget survey to get the priorities of the community, and this budget survey opened right after the financial forecast was presented. We had over 850 respondents as of May 15th, and we'll have the final report along with the proposed budget document in July. Wanted to just show some of the highly important areas are the areas where there was a number of support across this survey. Emergency preparedness, prevention and response, as well as housing and homelessness, and transportation and critical infrastructure were the top three in the respondents for this particular question. And then we asked a question this year about social service funding to get the community's input on what they consider to be the top funding priority. And as you can see here, basic needs led the responses and top funding priorities for social services. Now, quickly going through a recap of the conversation we had during the forecast. As you all know, in April, we talked about the financial forecast where we showed and we did a review of what our projected forecast looks like with a no new revenue maintenance and operations rate, as well as the voter approval rate. This is just recapping that the initial review and deficits using baseline expenditures anticipates a $1.3 million deficit in 2027. And that is under the voter approval rate. Of course, that deficit is bigger and grows more under the no new revenue rate. We also had a conversation about what it would look like to add the items that were reduced or eliminated in the planned year that was created during the fiscal year 26 budget process. If we added those items back into the budget for fiscal year 27, that would increase that deficit to $50.6 million. And this next slide just kind of walks through what that looks like with those added costs into the base forecast for the next 5 years. And then finally, we want to just talk a little bit about our sales tax update. We have received 6 payments through this fiscal year, and we are experiencing 7.3% growth in our sales tax revenue. The May payments current collections is 12.4% higher, but it should be noted when you look at this slide at the chart at the bottom, we had larger reductions or larger decrease in our sales tax at the same time of last year. We anticipate sales tax revenue to exceed the original forecasted amount or the estimate, but we'll continue to look at that over the next coming months as we're preparing the proposed budget and make adjustments to not only our current year estimate, but also to the impacts that we anticipated having for fiscal year 27 and the years to follow. And then as we talk through City Council's priorities and think through what we're going to do over the next couple of weeks, we do have an exercise that we're asking the council members to complete where it is a communication.
I feel better now that she's got something. I thought she was going to make us prioritize exercise.
We can do that too.
No. I feel a lot better now about where you're headed.
We can get the seniors out here. They can lead us in a little. Got to see our seniors.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Senior size, huh?
With that, we will have a survey tool that we will be distributing to council today that we're asking you all to prioritize and work this tool that has 3 different areas. And over the next couple of slides, I'll walk through each area. The first being looking at our priorities related to our strategic plan and the service areas or the strategic priorities within the strategic plan. And so we're asking you to assign 100 points across the 6 strategic priority areas. And this is to help us understand your desire for investment or preservation of these general areas. Then we'll look a little bit more granular at the items that we discussed during forecast and over the last several weeks, the items that were reduced in the fiscal year 26 planned year. We would ask that as you're looking through this tool, you'll tell us whether you want to maintain those reductions, restore them, or partially restore them. There'll be an opportunity for you to provide input on if there's anything you want to offset those areas with, items you want us to consider for reduction in order to add to the other areas. And then we'll look a little bit more granular at the social service contracts, the focus areas of those contracts, and ask you to prioritize those 15 areas, one being the most important down to, or the ones you want to prioritize most, number 1 down to 15. And then finally, the tool will have an opportunity for open input. There's 3 questions that we have in that third section that allows you to give us additional items to consider, as well as any comments that you have for us, or if there's some particular service areas, programs, or initiative that isn't included in those first 2 areas that you want considered for inclusion in the proposed document. As I mentioned, we'll be distributing the survey today, and then once it's distributed, we're asking that you have it completed and back to my team by Thursday, May 28th. And we will provide an aggregated report of this along with the proposed budget once we have the final information from you all. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you again. Anybody got anything that you want to, Councilmember Alter?
Just as it relates to Part B, the priorities and what we might want to preserve, I just wanted to re-up the request for the social service contract list. We've not yet received that list, and so can't tell you what we want to preserve if we don't know?
You will have the memo this week
Okay.
with the list.
I appreciate it.
Anything else? Yes, Councilmember Ellis. Sorry.
Thanks, Mayor. I actually put my hand up this time, but I didn't know if we were using that system today.
Oh, I just didn't look down. I didn't look down, so I apologize.
You're all good. I wanted to ask a question about the budget priority survey that's closing in mid-June. When will we get those results? And can we have them broken out just by district so we can see what our constituents are saying as responses?
So the budget priority report will come out with the proposed budget. So we'll have, that's one of the supplemental reports we add to, or we distribute after we distribute the proposed budget. That along with, for example, boards and commissions recommendations. I will check with the team. I believe the online survey is not district specific. I believe it is across the city, but let me verify that and let you all know.
Or if it has zip codes attached to any of them. I realize there's a good reason to have these maybe be more anonymous, depending on how folks want to answer the questions, but at least I know which zip codes I represent, and that could help us understand as the budget's being proposed what our folks are saying.
Yes, I'll check with the team to make sure, to see if that's available.
Okay, perfect. And then I had another question about when we get this exercise, which for the record, I'm happy to do any kind of exercise, whether that's mental gymnastics or physical activity. Will we get a breakdown of which departments are fitting within those 6 areas? Like, I'm wondering where Parks and Recreation goes. Is that with community health and sustainability?
So I'm thinking through the service priorities. I think we have a description of what is included in each one. Let me go back and make sure that is accurate. And what I'll do as well is send you all the link to the strategic plan that kind of breaks down the different measures and goals that are related to each area, so you can kind of see what generally is included in those areas. We don't say particularly by the strategic plan that this is where PARD sits, or Austin Parks and Recreation, for example. But by the goals and measures, you can tell what areas or what departments primarily lead those efforts.
Okay, that would be helpful. And then what are the considerations around which of our priorities might be general fund dollars versus enterprise dollars, just so we can get a better balance of where we want to say our priorities lie?
So most of the first section is a mix of course, general fund and enterprise funds, but there is a section in that 100 points where you can add your notes to say, I want this to focus on transportation, for example. In the section B, that is primarily all general fund focused. And then section C, you can identify any specific areas across any fund that you want us to focus on.
Okay, perfect, because I know also the critical infrastructure, that could mean transportation, but that could also mean utility work or other things that fall outside of TPW's purview.
Correct, and there's an opportunity to say specifically which part of critical infrastructure you want focused on.
Okay, that's great. And then likewise with the high-performing government section, just so we know exactly which initiatives are being referenced here. Obviously, we want all of these categories to be high-performing government, but just understanding specifically what would fall under that would help us do the program.
That is primarily our support areas. So if you're thinking finance, building service, facilities management, technology services, human resources, so it's mostly the internal functions. Okay. And there are measures that include things like our fiscal surety as a city, and so it's those kinds of functions that you'll be thinking about in high-performing government.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Councilmember. Member Pro Tem.
Just a quick question. The sales tax numbers are so unusual compared to what, I'll just say, what I was expecting, especially what we hear from kind of the macro environment out there. And I know y'all are on the budget side of things, not on the economy side of things, but any sense of what's driving those strong sales tax collections?
Well, I'd say I think there's a lot of distortions in there. So if you compare it versus 2 years ago, we're only growing For instance, the May payment is only as if you'd grown a little over 1% each year. It's just you had a big dip last year and then a large increase this year. So I think in addition to having uncertainty about the larger direction of the broader economic trend, on top of that, we have a lot of year-to-year and month-to-month noise, which doesn't make our forecasting job any easier. Oh, Eric Nelson, Deputy Director, BOE.
Thank y'all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.